up, everyone? It's Man Like Devin. Welcome to the Reggae PodClash. Roger and I had a really, really great conversation that we're going to bring you this episode with a local Southern California legend, Mr. Joey Altruda. We grew up listening to Joey's music with his band Jump with Joey and all the amazing traditional ska and Jamaican-inspired music that he's made over the years. So we were really excited for this one. We think you guys are going to like it. He talks a lot about his new release with the great Tom Zay. It's called Ababa. And we talk all about the creation of that and what this super awesome project sounds like. So you guys are going to love this show. We're bringing that to you in a minute. But before we do, I wanted to tell you really quick about some things happening in the world of reggae right now. And you know, since I am doing the news of the week myself, then I get to choose what we talk about. And I'm going to talk about my upcoming album, Man Like Devin, Wheel and Shoulder, which now has an official release date, August 20th. It's all acoustic reggae, rocksteady, and ska. I even have the copy here. Let me show you guys. I've got it. Where is it? Oh, here it is. Yes. Check it out. The vinyl is in, and it's looking nice. The inspiration came from the classic Alton Ellis LP, Mr. Soul of Jamaica. Roger Rivas, my co-host for the show, as you all know, did all the engineering, and he also did the graphic design. The lyrics are all in the back. It's going to be out August 20th and Friday, June 18th, which will have come and gone by the time you guys see this. We're releasing the first single from the album, People's Prayer. And that day you can also pre-order the vinyl. And so I'm really, really excited about this. This is like 3 years of work that's finally come to a culmination. I'm stoked. And so, you know, if you like all the music you hear on this show, and if you are a fan of my previous band, The Expanders, then I think you're going to like this. Check it out. Man Like Devin, Wheel and Shoulder, Acoustic Reggae, Rocksteady and Ska Volume 1. It's out August 20th on Rootfire. And also, another great release that just came out is the new Jesse Royal, entitled Royal, and it comes out on Easy Star Records. Big up Easy Star. I got to work closely with them for many years with the Expanders, and anytime there's an Easy Star release, you know it's going to be high quality, and this is no exception. Jesse Royal is one of the great voices coming out of Jamaica, and his new album Royal is super, super good, so everyone go check that. And lastly, Cali Roots has finally been rescheduled for a set-in-stone date. It's May 26th through May 29th, 2022. Super cool to know that Cali Roots is definitely on the horizon. There's some great acts playing Chronics, Damian Marley. It's 4 days. I mean, there's so many, like all the who's who of American reggae, and there's a lot of great Jamaican and international acts, some of whom I just mentioned. So you can go to CaliforniaRootsFestival.com to get tickets for that. You want to do that, it's the place to be. Cali Roots is always super fun. And also, we are giving away, courtesy of VP Records. Go to the VP website, VP Records website, by the way, if you're looking for Jamaican vinyl. Just the amount of stuff they've released over the years through Greensleeves, and you know, on VP itself is just insane and amazing. So go check that out. And this week they are gracious enough to let us give away a copy of Augustus Pablo's Rising Sun record, which is part of the Ancient Harmony series. So you can find the link to enter the contest to win this record in the description area, in the YouTube description for this video. And also, if you're listening to the podcast, you can find it in the podcast on Apple Podcasts in the little podcast description area as well. So go enter. You're going to want to get that. And before we get into Roger and my interview with the great Joey Altruda, I wanted to really quickly shout out some people. The Rootsland podcast, which is presented by Consequence of Sound. The host is Henry Ko. He's a great storyteller. This is a must listen for fans of Jamaican music. It's really an amazing podcast, and we recommend it. Songs from Scratch and Clinton Farron's A Sunday With and Talk With a Friend, I think are wrapped up for now. But you can definitely go back and scroll through the archives of those. Check them out. History of LA Ska, which is celebrating SoCal's ska and reggae scene with Junior Francis and Mr. Eric Kohler. You've got to check that out. Instagram is at History of LA Ska. And of course, listen to Chuck Foster's Reggae Central every Sunday from 2 to 5 p.m. on KPFK 90.7 LA. And that's also kpfk.org. You can stream that. One of the great reggae shows of all time. That's kind of how I got into reggae in the first place in the late 90s. Through Chuck Foster and going to Roger Steffen's house as well. Junior Francis, who we mentioned earlier, has a great reggae show. Also, every Saturday night, 8 to 11 p.m. You can check that at kxlu.com. And Dub Club is still doing their Wednesday night streaming from 9 to midnight. Twitch.tv/dubclubla. That is an amazing live stream, which I think is coming to an end soon because it was announced that Dub Club will be reopened finally on July 21st. I'm going to be there for sure. I can't wait. But in the meantime, make sure you go check out all that stuff. And now, please enjoy the interview that Roger and I did with the great Joey Altruda. Yo. What's up, Raj?
What's up, Devin? How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. It's another Reggae PodClash day. We've got a great guest on today.
Yes, man. We got the great Joey Altruda joining us today.
Ooh. And that's just sorry to cut you off, but just even saying that we have Joey Altruda on is so cool. As two people who grew up in LA, and in terms, we're like a younger generation compared to the people we were listening to when we were growing up in LA, listening to ska and reggae, and just when I think of ska in LA and Rocksteady and stuff like that back in the day, the stuff that I was first listening to, I really think of two names. It's Hepcat and Jump with Joey. Like that's what I think of, and
sure.
so for two kids from LA who grew up listening to traditional Jamaican music, having Joey Altruda on is really, really cool. So we're stoked for this.
It's super huge. I mean, you mentioned both of us. I mean, I'm much younger than you are, so you're my elder. I don't know about how many years, but yeah. So, but yes, we both admire Joey, and I'm really, really excited he's on the show, and we got a lot of cool stuff to talk about. But first, we're going to go into our record of the week, our famous records of the week. Ladies and gentlemen, Devin collects vinyl. I collect vinyl. The kids call them vinyls. Have you ever heard vinyls? No, I hate that word, right? Vinyls? Is that even
It's a new thing.
It's a new thing. I don't like it. Represses. No. Hey, they sold, where did I see they sold records at? And I wanted to tell you. Shoot. I was at some store and I was like, now they're selling. It was like a clothes store. Yeah.
Oh, they've been doing that. Like
they've been
Hot
doing
Topic
that
and stuff like that.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh,
or like Target even. Like they sell a record. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, how do you decide? Is it like a top 10 selling charts? Like they're just gonna have like Britney Spears and the Killers?
No. Well, like when I mean, it's been a minute since I've been to a Target, but it was only a couple years ago. But they were still selling like. They had like Green Day's, their mid-90s big album, and they'd have like Nevermind by Nirvana and like stuff like that.
Like safe, like go-tos where their classic albums. They probably have like a Beatles catalog, there, and I totally get you. Oh, it might have been Walmart. I don't know. It surprised me. It surprised me. I was like, why is there LPs here? There are no CDs, right? Granted, no CDs, but there's like LPs.
I feel like it caters to, and this is sounding like so snobby, right? But I mean, whatever. I feel like it's catering to, people who are not necessarily record collectors, but it's somebody who's like, oh, like I think it'd be really cool and hip to like have a record player, and like, well, now I need some records, and like, oh, like I'll have Nirvana's album on vinyl and Green Day's on vinyl, and that's what it felt like it was catering to. It
becomes furniture and things you hang on walls. It doesn't become something that actually gets scratched because you've listened to it a million times.
But who knows? People get into they're crazy gateways to things. So then maybe that gets someone into some actual serious vinyl.
There's gateways, dude. You know what? I'm into Jolly Ranchers now. And the gateway to that was Tootsie Roll Pops, and then now I'm doing Jolly Ranchers. Who knows what tomorrow will be? Reese's Pieces? I don't want to talk about it.
Those are good.
Before we get into my candy addiction, let's go into our record of the week. Devin, you want to go first, or shall I?
Yeah, I'll go first. I got an instrumental record this week. I know nothing about this record, so there's not a lot to say. I know next to nothing. So let's play this. It's just a fun instrumental tune that is not to be taken too seriously. It's like sometimes on this show, we like to play records that we really wouldn't get to play when we're out DJing, and I've always loved this record just for what it is. It's really simple, kind of silly tune. And I've never got to play it out. And so I thought, you know what, today I'm going to play it. This actually is my brother's record.
Okay.
My brother Patrick. And
hey, no pun intended, right? Because the label
is Pat's record.
Wow.
Yeah. So here we go. I know nothing about who this is, but it's a guitar instrumental early reggae tune called, I don't know. Someone tell me what this is called. Here it is. Yeah, it's too bad people can't see us backstage. We were doing some dance moves. Roger was showing me some stuff.
Oh yeah,
that was nice.
There's so much to unpack with that song. I love it.
Yeah. So first of all, it's unlabeled, my copy, and to make the mystery even more mysterious for me, somebody wrote on it. They wrote "Go Back." Here's my copy, right? And then on the sleeve, it says "Vibrators Go Back." So I looked up "Vibrators Go Back" on YouTube, and there is a tune by the Vibrators called "Go Back." So I listened to it. It's definitely not that song. So I listened to the flip side of this because I'm like, oh, maybe this is the flip side of the Vibrators Go Back. No, it's weird because this has the flip side of this record that we just heard is an organ instrumental, early organ instrumental, and "Go Back" by the Vibrators is also an early organ instrumental, but it's not that tune. So somebody totally mislabeled this even when they tried to write it in. They just got it wrong. It makes me think maybe it was recorded at the same sessions. I don't know, because that other tune has the same vibe as the flip side of this record. So there's something there. If we ever can manage to get Mr. Clive Chin on the show from Randy's, of course we had his stepmom, Mrs. Pat, on. But if we can ever get Clive Chin on, I'm going to play this for him and ask him, because the only thing I do know is that it says on here, a Randy's production. You can see it. Well, maybe you can't see it, but there you go. It says a Randy's production, and it's got all the, distributed by Randy 17 North Parade on it. So that is the only real breadcrumb trail that I have to go off of. But, what strikes me about that song is it sounds like the musicians just like having fun. It's not like a serious... Nothing real serious about that arrangement or anything. It's this really kind of simple guitar melody, and I think it's two guitars. That other thing, kind of doing the answers, kind of sounds like a clavinet to me, like the tone of it. But then sometimes it does these little things where I'm like, But that clavinets always trick my ear. There's lots of times where I can't tell if it's a clavinet or a guitar, so I don't know. But
especially going through like a wah pedal.
Exactly. And by the way, whenever I talk about clavinet, without fail, someone hits me up and goes like, no, I don't think it was a clarinet. And I'm like, no, not a clarinet. Like a clavinet with a V is a different instrument. If you don't know what a clavinet is, go check it out. Google clavinet. Anyway, but yeah, and those, so it just sounds like, they had the day. This is the narrative I've made up in my mind about this song. They were in the studio, they had some time, they were like, well, let's do an instrumental. And they came up with the little intro, and then they had that hook. And then that little bridge part where they go into those breaks, right? Right. Boom, boom. But those little stops, it just sounds like they're just having fun, knowing this is going to be the B-side. We're just going to do our thing. But my brother somehow tracked this record down, and he's a guitar player. He loves guitar instrumentals like that. So, he was real stoked. And as often happens, his records seem to find their way into my record collection, into my record bags, and never seem to find their way back, So I sometimes forget which ones. And my brother is so cool. So he never even I'll forget, and he's even come to see us DJ sometimes. And I'm like, I'll play a song. I'm like, hey, have you ever heard that one? He's like, yep, I bought that and you took it from me.
I heard it the day I bought it.
Yeah. So, but he's, Patrick's cool. But it's just a nice little tune.
That tune is I feel like there's a bigger story to it. Either one, it sounds like it could be a cover, right? So it has a jingle to it,
for sure.
And if not that, then there's something. But I feel like it sounds like a cover. It would be a cover. I don't have no idea where. That
happens to me all the time because I just Jamaican music is call me close-minded, but it's it's almost exclusively what I listen to. You know what I mean? So a lot of times it'll be like the Scatolites. Or, some of those early Count Ossie songs where I'm like, I'll show it to somebody. I'll be like, oh, check out this melody. It's so cool. And they're like, yeah, because that's, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, well, that happens to me all the time. So, yeah, we'll probably bring Joey on right now and he'll be like, oh, yeah, that was whatever.
It happens so much that when I hear, it sucks what I'm about to say, but when I hear a piece of Jamaican music that just, the composition is intricate and it sounds like a really nice piece. Now I've learned that I'm like, this is probably a cover, something, like in the 70s or something. It could be like a Dennis Brown song. And I'm giving credit to Dennis Brown because I'm like, oh, this is a dope Dennis Brown song. But then I come to find, oh no, he did a cover of this song. And
that's not a criticism to me. That's just noticing stylistic differences. It's like you come to notice your ear just kind of tingles and you're like, it doesn't sound like Jamaican songwriting.
Right, good call. Yeah.
So you're just like, exactly. I don't know if they would do that. And sure enough, you find out it's,
it's a cover.
It's whatever.
But that song is fun. When you said fun, it's the perfect word because we were having fun with it. I feel like dancing to it. I feel like that song should be on the old Batman. The old Batman TV shows. Where they start dancing after they fight and stuff. Yeah, or something like that. Batman walks into a club with Robin and that song's playing. Yeah. Byron Lee is in the background playing it or something like that.
What we were just talking about happens to me so often. I was DJing somewhere and I played. There's this early '80s tune by Wayne Smith or somebody like that. that's a Paul Simon cover. It's like a well-known Paul Simon cover, and I didn't even like realize, you know. So I was playing it, and some dude at Scotland Yard came up to me and was like, "Whoa, that was a crazy like reggae version of that Paul Simon song." And I'm like playing along, like, "Oh yeah, really good, huh?" But in my head, I'm like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I never knew that."
I have,
and then I went and looked it up, and it's like one of his biggest songs. So
it's
like,
one of his biggest. Yeah, Mother Child Reunion is.
It wasn't that. It was somewhere where him and Hooli or somewhere.
Oh, it's like a there's a Simon and Garfunkel version of Sounds of Silence. You have to know that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, that one.
There's a Rocksteady version, which is dope. Mm-hmm. But speaking of that, real quick on the subject, there's this dope Dynamite's version of Hello Mother, Hello Father.
Mm-hmm.
You know Hello
Mother? You played it for me.
Hello
Yeah.
Father?
Oh, for sure.
And it's like, dude, the song is dope, but I can't get away from how cheeseball Hello Mother, Hello Father is. I can't find
Camp
myself
Granada.
to ever play it, but the song is so dope. Like Winston Wright's doing the melody, and it's like, yeah, I'm like, this is heavy reggae. It's like, hello mother, hello father.
Yeah, all the time. I know. It's like once it almost like ruins it for you. You're like, oh,
another one. It might have been on that same album. They do The Lion Sleeps Tonight. Like in the jungle. Yeah. I'm not.
Oh, dude, Ross Michael on his Nyabingi album, which is it's like a top 20 album for me. Just only one of a kind album, straight Nyabingi the whole time. But they do a cover of like The Lion Sleeps Tonight. Oh, jeez. And that's the one I always skip. I'm like, I can't do this.
Yeah, you're like, I can't. No matter how heavy this is, I just can't do it.
And there's
sorry, Simba.
And even going back to like, there's even another Wayne Smith tune where he covers Life. He calls it Life is a Moment in Space, and I don't know if that's the actual title of the tune, but it's like a Barbra Streisand song, and it's such a heavy tune when Wayne Smith does it. And then when I heard Barbra Streisand, I found out like it was a Barbra Streisand, and I was just like,
oh jeez.
But that one didn't ruin it for me. It's just such a heavy. In fact, that's going to be my record of the week coming up.
Yeah, you got to play that sometime. I got to hear that.
Oh yeah, it's so good.
We'll have Barbra on the show.
Sick. I play that one out all the time because the rhythm is heavy.
It's heavy.
All right, we've talked enough about my record. Roger, what you got for us this week?
This next tune is called Chatty Chatty by the Itals. Play it.
Them chatty too much. Them chatty too much. Everything them hear people talk. Them go round and live on them. Them live too much. Them live too much. If them hear you have a set of plan, them try to kill you. Them live too much. Them live too much. Oh, Lord have mercy on their soul. For what they have done, they have never been told. Everything them hear people talk, them go round and live on them. Them live too much. Them live too much. If them hear you have a sense of plan, them try to kill your hand. Them live too much. Them live too much. Oh, Lord have mercy on them soul. For what they have done, they have never been told. Them chatty too much. Them chatty too much. Oh, them chatty too much. Live and
No, I tells you chatty too much.
Chatty with one T.
Yeah, and I did that on purpose because that's how it is on the label. Of course, I have the blank of it. But yeah, I got this record initially because the flip side is the DJ version to this song. So it's the same groove. Winston Blake. It's just a super dope version. He talks just enough to leave space that I chose this as one of the songs to do as an organ version. So ladies and gentlemen, go on Spotify right now, type in Roger Rivas, and I have an album called Organ Versions 1 and 2, and the song's called Make Your Move. So it's an organ version of this tune. And so I was really, really stoked to know the vocal version when I got, because initially when I got the track to do the organ version, it was through Mark Morales, a good collector here in LA. And I finally got the record and I was like, oh shoot, this is the vocal version to it, which I really like. The vocal is unique to me. Like if you listen to it, they're like, I don't know, they just sound like they're not into it, or like
they're out of they're flat. I mean, they're especially flat on that.
Wow. Like it just doesn't sound like, come on, man, get some coffee in you.
It was like take 17.
Maybe. Or maybe they just ran to the studio. They were late and puckered out or something. But it there's something cool about it, and there's something like
it's dope. It's dope. It shines through.
It does. It shines through as being unique for me. And it's like I would play it. See, tunes like that, the groove is so heavy in itself that you can play that live because it gets people moving, kind of. So the lyrics become kind of secondary. But chatty.
I love a good chatty song.
There's a lot of chatties. A lot of people were talking shit back in the day in Jamaica. Oh, damn.
Still, man, you gotta.
Still, a lot of gossip going on.
It's like today we call them haters, but
that's
back in
true.
the day, it was just like.
And think about all
you're too chatty.
Think about all the potential haters that can the hating that can go on because you have all these studios, these musicians. It's a fight to do this and that. I could see the animosity that would occur back then on Orange Street. So anyways, yeah, the chatty, the iTels. I've heard other songs like this is a question I would ask you. Like, what other songs by the iTels do you know?
Bro, the iTels are one of my favorite groups.
Oh, you called them out of tune, so okay.
They were learning then, but man, one of the like essential reggae LPs to me, and it's a compilation, so it's not like officially an album, but it's pretty easily available on Discogs and stuff. It's called the iTels Early Recordings, like 1971 to 78 or something like that, and every single song is dope, and you could hear the progression, like how they got better. Great songwriters, of course. The late great Ronnie Davis, Keith Porter, these guys. Ronnie Davis was also in the tenors, of course. The iTels are one of the unsung heroes of reggae music for me. They did have one smash hit, which some people call. People go back and forth between Sata Masagana by the Abyssinians and In a Disya Time by the iTels as being like the national anthem of reggae. Like that that rhythm for In a Disya Time. Do 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 dum, do 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 dum. Right, that's theirs, and that's one of the classic reggae songs. But they've got so many good songs, so many excellent songs. And I came to them like later in my reggae listening. I didn't really know about them for a while, but I'm serious, man. The iTels they've got some of the best Jamaican music. That album that I mentioned, and they've got some other ones too. They've got I'm not gonna something power.
Have you heard of
Give Me Power? I think.
Oh, Give Me Power. That's not the Give Me Power.
No. But it's something power. I might even be saying it wrong. But it's a later, like late 70s, early 80s, because they were working all through the 70s and 80s, and past then too. They've got some I've got like a late 80s, early 90s kind of digi style by them, and they always delivered. They were kind of like, if anyone's familiar with Burning Spear and is really into all his music, you'll know that from his early Studio One stuff all the way through up until he stopped really making records like 10 or 15 years ago. The styles would change, but he would kind of keep his thing going over whatever the style was, and it always worked. And there were certain groups that did that, not a lot, like a select few, and the iTels were one of those, and they never really reached the international acclaim that Burning Spear did. Right. But man, like the Itals could do their thing over anything. Great songwriters, Ronnie Davis and Keith Porter. They're two of the great Jamaican songwriters to me.
What I felt was a trip is that, like, okay, the flip side of this Chatty Chatty is Winston Blake, and he's like this DJ persona kind of thing. It's not like U-Roy or anything. It's more of like what's that gentleman that was he hosted the radio station? I forget his name. But it's more
like later on,
like this, like, you know what I mean, like you got to do it the bigger way.
I see.
It's not like as I would say, it's not like that kind of DJ. It's
kind of like Dave Barker style.
Kind of, but even more of like, and you hear it in some songs where it's like,
I know some Winston Blake. Isn't he the one that goes like the farmer said to the potato? Isn't it that?
That's Count Machuki.
Oh, is it?
Sure. But like the farmer said to the potato.
Oh, okay.
I punch you now and eat you later. That's a Count Machuki.
I guess I'm mixing up the voice.
No, but he's got that voice like this kind of thing where he's, if you heard, like, dang it. Anyway.
Like trying to do the American radio DJ voice.
Yeah, exactly. The proper kind of thing.
Yeah.
But what I found cool was that, like, a lot of the records that have the iTels, the flip side is Winston Blake doing his thing. And even this song, Chatty Chatty, for what it's worth, it's credited as Winston Blake writing it. So I had to kind of do my research and going, was Winston Blake a member of the iTels? But he's not. It's just something I found kind of interesting, that there's always that, wherever you find the iTels, the flip side is like Winston Blake. And I looked him up. He had a sound system. He was a record producer. Same old thing. He has a Wikipedia. He has a lot of cool things he did, actually.
Maybe in the early days it was like a production thing. Maybe the producer was using both of them a lot, or
right,
something
that's
like
true.
that.
That's true.
I want to say the Itals in that era did a lot of stuff for like Lloyd Daly on the Matador label, but
okay.
I don't even know if that's correct. But that maybe there's some connection there.
Right. Yeah, someday I'll play the flip side, which is pretty cool because the groove is heavy enough that anything on top would be really nice. But yeah, man, there's the my record.
That's a great one, and everyone go make sure you check out Roger's version that he was talking about. Make Your Move. Yeah. That's heavy. Those Roger organ albums. I still listen to them pretty regularly. That's amazing stuff.
It's cool. It's kind of like Baby Cheating, but it's still fun to do.
Nah. I mean, dude, think about it. If you were there at that, if Roger Rivas, you yourself, like, were there at that time, you would have been there. There'd be a bunch of flips. You know what I mean? There'd be a bunch of like Roger Rivas on the back, organ style. You just weren't there, so you're doing it now. There's nothing wrong with that.
Big head Mexican coming the door,
So you're just, you're just doing now what you should have been doing then.
That's nice to say. I mean, I always think about that. I mean, that goes for a lot of musicians, because we adore this music so much that if you grabbed a Devin Morrison or a Joey Altruda and you dropped them right there in the middle of Orange Street in the 60s, like, of course you're going to be on sessions because it's like, dude, who is this dude? He knows the music. He's,
They'd be like, dude, this annoying white guy who keeps coming by the studio. We have to get him on a track. Just to shut him up.
Oh, it'd be the butterfly effect, man. You'd mess up history forever.
Oh, for sure.
There'd be no
PodClash.
There'd be no PodClash. There'd be no nothing. Well, we're going to have a whole podcast on time travel in the future. And
yes.
But for today now, did you have some stuff you wanted to talk about as far as the... I
want to remind people that the Record of the Week segment is brought to you by the Reggae PodClash merchandise store. You can go to rootfire.net and click on the store tab, and you can get your Reggae PodClash mug, shirt, beanie hat, crop. I guess it's called a midriff hoodie. My brother's girlfriend has one, and she's rocking it. Hats, I already said that. You can get all kinds of nice stuff. So go get your reggae gear fix here. If you're looking for a new reggae shirt, this is the place, all designed by Roger. And this is a non-profit show. We don't make any money, but there are some expenses. And so not only can you stock up on some cool gear, but you'll be helping to support the show. And if you just want to send a donation to help support the podcast, you can do so by Venmoing Rootfire. And of course, the best way to support the show is to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and get some of your friends to do so too. That really, really helps. And now for the portion of the show you've all been waiting for. Roger, will you do the honors?
Yes, man. Up next, we have a Los Angeles legend, not just within the ska and reggae community, but within the music community in general, from Brazilian music to, many other genres that have been so important to, like Devin said earlier, defining his taste and my taste. He's a hero of ours. This is kind of a trip. If you went back in time and you told the young version of us, like, hey, you're gonna sit down with Joey Altruda one day and shoot the shit, I'd slap you right in the face. He is truly someone I look up to musically, and he's a cool dude in general. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Joey Altruda.
Yay!
Hey everyone! Whoa! Thank you for that illustrious, loving intro, Roger.
I meant 20% of it.
Hey, of course. And, it's great to be here with both of you. Honestly, it's really incredible. Had you told me 20 years ago that we would have this interweb machine with these video phones and cameras and stuff, I would have slapped you right in the face. I've been enjoying watching the record of the week section on the monitor in the green room while I was waiting.
Nice.
And I had a couple notes I wanted to add to that. Of kind of interest. The Itals singing out of tune is, in my humble estimation, because that is an off-centered pressing of that 45 you're listening to. And so as it's going, it's getting sounding more out of tune. You might want to put the arm on there with the sound off and see, is the arm of the record moving a little bit, or is it staying straight? Because I think, which is infamous in Jamaican pressings, the off-centered pressing.
Oh, I like that.
Right? Which would then be, why does it sound like they're singing out of tune? It doesn't seem like them, right?
It makes so much sense, because you do, if you listen closely, especially as I was recording that into the computer, every single rotation, it's like the off-tuneness.
That's what I mean. It sounds like you didn't wind the Victrola up or something. Right. Running out of gas. Your song, Devin,
Oh, yes.
is actually a cover version of a very famous Puerto Rican song called Kachita, written by Rafael Hernandez Marin. It's a uber famous tune covered by everybody, even like in Muzak. It's like what would be a continental type of Latin American hit done by people around the world, including lots of people of like either Cuba or Tito Puente, New Yorican. It's become a standard, like, say you have jazz guys that have their top 100 all-time, everybody knows them, standards that every jazz musician learns. It's one of those for Latin.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's a cover version of Kachita, and so if you look that up, you'll find some really great versions of this by like Orquesta Aragon from Cuba, or you'll find it by early Tito Puente and people like that. So another fun fact about Hello Mudda Hello Fada.
Yes, I love this.
Was doing some research, because this is based on a classical piece of music from the ballet Dance of the Hours from the opera La Gioconda by Amilcare Ponchielli. So it's from an Italian opera. I don't know whether you've ever heard that in its classical music form, but then, of course, Alan Sherman made Hello Mudda Hello Fada. He was an ad exec originally, so which makes sense of why he's so good at putting parodies to well-known melodies. And of course, which then let's go back to Jamaica, and the Jamaicans listen to any kind of music. And they heard everything. It's always shocking to me, or like kind of shocking, like, they heard that record too and did a cover of it. So you got Scatolites on Randy's Records doing a ska version of Hello Mudda Hello Fada, right?
Right.
That's pretty funny.
I mean, the Scatolites. Yeah, go ahead.
Another fun fact about Lion Sleeps Tonight that was not written by the Tokens. That is a cover version of a South African song from the 50s, and and it was proven, because I don't have the facts of who the artist was. I have a friend who's a deep collector of this kind of music who has all the facts and figures, but it was a proven fact that the Tokens did not write this song because the person who wrote it and recorded it, he recorded an alternate version, like an alternate take was also released of that same recording session. And in that, and it was an instrumental. Okay, it was not a vocal song, but during the like end part of the song, the saxophone player, it might be the person who wrote it, improvises, which is that's an improvisation.
Wow.
So then let's talk about cultural appropriation, if we will. But I mean, like, and that's the rest is history. So it's funny because sometimes we don't really like a version of a song that's the known and loved version, and we don't have any idea that is a cover, and that the one that preceded it would be something we probably would really dig.
Right.
So,
that's so true. That's completely true. These are beautiful. This is the kind of information I crave. Because like I was saying, like, I don't know, I had a feeling about that tune that it was something, but it's like, thank you for all that.
Of course. I mean, I love geeking out on this stuff too. And always when there's these, I love the threads in the Roots, Naughty Roots group in Facebook, because someone will drop something like what you'll have, and then you'll come up with like someone like me dropping like a version of Kachita in there, or texting my guy about, hey, what's the version of Lion Sleeps Tonight? Who is the original artist? And dropping that in there. And like, you get these great threads, and that's what makes Facebook actually worth staying on.
100%. And anybody listening to this who is not a part of the Roots Naughty Roots Facebook group, you should, if you're interested in this kind of discussion that we just had, like, go on there, because Joey's totally right. It's great. I do it all the time. I'll ask for lyrics help, or I'll, whatever, like, just what is this? I've got this blank 7-inch. I don't know what it is. And boom, out of the wood, and quick too. Like 4 minutes later, someone's like, oh, that's whoa, man.
There's not a whole lot of people out there that want, like, you can share this kind of real minutia type of info with. So when you see that, you're like, oh, you don't know what that is? Oh, I can't wait to tell you. It's great.
Exactly. People are just excited to talk about this.
People go deep in the collectors. The collectors that are in Roots Naughty Roots are people that some of them have been doing it for decades. So they really have encyclopedic knowledge of this stuff.
Well, like, literally, because the guy who started it is Michael Turner, right? Isn't that his name? He's the one who wrote originally Roots Naughty Roots was a discography book. Not a discography, but it was like you could go find the matrix number on your 7-inch and then look it up in the book. It was kind of like an encyclopedia, and it would tell you information about it. And they would keep, in the pre-internet days, I've got one of the editions. There were many editions where they would keep putting it out and adding more and more to it as their knowledge expanded. So when you say encyclopedic knowledge of this stuff, I mean, these people on this forum literally have that.
Yeah, true.
That's great. As we were listening to the records, I knew for a fact, I mean, it does not surprise me, Joey would have some input on the records.
I saw him smiling back there. He was like,
Yeah.
When I think
I was laughing when you said it might be a cover. I'm like, yes, it might be.
Dang, I love it. Well, let's talk about that a little bit. Like, I mean, I would definitely want to go into how you started with Jamaican music, but did that coincide with just record collecting? Was record collecting something you did at a young age?
Yeah, I'm 57. Let me give you just a quick background. I'm 57, and I started collecting records when I was 6 in 1969. And it wasn't like, like a big, what they call crate diggers. And you know what? The word diggers actually in digging is it's a newer term. It probably came out of hip hop culture, probably, no doubt, or something. No pun intended. Anyways, we're record hunters. We went record hunting. But anyways, as a kid, my parents, my mom had to kind of keep to strict family budget, and so she would do a lot of thrift shopping to just get clothes for me and my sisters at a time when it was not a hip thing. It was embarrassing to wear thrift shop clothes, whatever, it was early 70s, but I would go with her and look at records in the thrift shops, or people would give me hand-me-down albums. But I had this thing about records and, of course, music. I played music since I was 4 years old. So I had all this. And so the records, not just to chase your answer, the records, I would find a genre, and sometimes it would just like get me so moved and worked up that I would have a burning desire to need to know, how can I play this kind of music? And so that's, absolutely what brought me to Jamaican music.
Wow. I mean, because you talk about different musics, and we're going to get into your different directions that you've taken from, cha-cha music to lounge music to exotica music to Brazilian music to Jamaican music. Is it fair to say that, while you've been digging for records at a young age, that those are the kind of the records defined those different routes? Like,
yeah. And the people I met along the way, and like the friends that I made, and the other collectors that I met, of course, like, analog, I call analog collecting out there in the field, not inside of cyberspace per se, but like that's all we had. So you might be at a record shop and you're looking at records, and someone next to you says, oh, that's a good record, you should buy that. Or, oh, you like that? Oh, if you like that, you're probably going to like this as well. And see, that's how we learned. We didn't hardly have any books or any knowledge, written knowledge on the things that we did like. And, my foray into ska music my gateway was the Specials' first album in 1980 when I was 17. And I didn't really know anything, have any context of what ska was. I think I might have known it had some sort of origin in Jamaica. But, that was it. I didn't know who Rico was. I didn't know that about Jamaica's independence. I didn't know about the West Indians moving to England and henceforth having their music distributed to England. I knew nothing about it, right. And it would be several years till I heard authentic Jamaican ska.
Wow. Okay. So in the 80s, it's fair to say that you weren't, granted you got Specials and you kind of dug two-tone. What you were into, like other genres at that time, right? You weren't.
Yeah, I was into like different genres all at the same time too, because when I was 17, I was hugely into early like 50s original rockabilly music and the Sun record label, because there was a rockabilly revival going on, and I was starting to play that. That's the first kind of stuff. I bought a bass when I was 18, started playing rockabilly music. But at the same time, I was also listening to Afro-Cuban music, because I had that since I was about 14, 15, growing up in my neighborhood. My friend, who was in his 40s, Bobby Redfield, was the guitar player, had been the Cal Jaders guitar player. And he would play in a band in our neighborhood every week. My older sister, would hang out with all the band. And the band was what became Pancho Sanchez's band. Wow. So those guys took me under their wing at a young age and started showing me music and, mentoring me. And the Banda brothers, Tony and Ramon Banda, were in that band, and Ramon Banda became a great mentor of mine, and I went from knowing nothing about that to one day being able to be a band leader that hired Ramon Banda to be in my band, which I was like, who would have known if you were to tell me at that age, Right. At the same time, I was finding Jamaican music, because by the time I was about 19, I was hanging out full-time in Hollywood and it was in two different bands who had British people in the bands, people from England, and they started showing me the Jamaican music. And so I had those three different kind of genres that I was very interested in all at the same time.
That kind of speaks, the fact that you were record hunting from a young age and getting into like so many different kinds of music, but never encountered Jamaican music until later on, really speaks to like how Jamaican music just did not make its way to America at that time. Because it's interesting to me that you would, as someone so interested in records, like you still wouldn't have encountered, you still kind of went the same route that I hear from like a lot of people. It's like, well, I heard two-tone first, and then, and then I found.
Yeah. or
unless
something.
you're on the East Coast.
Yeah.
But at this time, correct me if I'm wrong, you're talking about Los Angeles?
Yeah.
Okay, see, yeah. But you're right. So that's you nailed it, Devin. Like a lot of people have that story because the records didn't make it. And also there was no internet for people to buy records so that they can migrate to the West.
Right, but like, he's saying he's finding like Afro-Cuban stuff and finding rockabilly and, I'm sure you were finding some other rarities like here and there, some cool stuff, and you never just like, stumbled upon, a Scatolites tune or anything.
No, I think the very first thing I heard when I was about 18 or 19, I was probably about 19, was the Club Ska 67 album that was distributed on the West Coast. It was a Mango label imprint, it was the imprint of Island. So because it had such wide distribution, it made it to Los Angeles, and there were probably a couple other Scatolites things somewhere like Rhino Records on Westwood Boulevard in Santa Monica at that point, but I didn't go there, but there was no market for this music in where we lived in LA. Only in Brooklyn and probably Toronto and Miami. Mm-hmm. I would say you would in the States, in Brooklyn and Miami, you might have found these types of records there because of the close proximity and the Jamaican population that lived there. But other than that, there was no market for it in LA, so we didn't have it. The only way you might find it is if someone happened to bring some of these records home from a vacation in Jamaica, which was what happened with Tom Chastain at Dub Club. His parents went on a vacation to Jamaica when he was a small kid and brought home a stack of 45s. And that's how he heard reggae.
Yeah, and even like Roger Steffens, one of the great reggae archivists, like, I've known him for years and he always tells his story and we had him on the show, and even him, it's like the way he got into it was like, he was older, so he wasn't listening to, this was as it was coming out, but he got, it's because Catch a Fire came out and he read about it, it got pressed because it was Island Records. He read a crazy review about it and went out and got it, and that was his start, so even someone like that, it wasn't like a deep cut that he found first. It was, it was Catch a Fire.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And it all starts with that one song. When you first heard original ska music, did it click that like, oh, this shares similarities with the two-tone stuff I was listening to, or did it share similarities to the other musics that you were listening to?
It was more of the two-tone. Like, I knew there was original ska, but I hadn't heard it yet. And one of the English guys I hung out with told me about Prince Buster, but I hadn't heard him yet. But here's the real milestone and keystone for me that happened in 1980. Well, in the early 80s, 82 to 80, 88, 89, I was in a band called Tupelo Chain Sex, okay? And it was a funny, weird, interesting post-punk experimental band that had elements of Jamaican music in it with some of the tunes had a lot of skank in it. We were a big influence on Fishbone when they were just starting out. But one of our great friends who ended up managing us for a period of time is a guy named Jason Mayall, and his brother is Gaz Mayall. Their dad is John Mayall, the blues musician from the UK. Jason was also my girlfriend at the time, her roommate. So I was around Jason all the time when I was hanging out with my girlfriend, and he started playing me the Jamaican records, and he had Prince Buster, and he had he was getting represses of the Coxzone and Studio One records from visiting New York and going to Coxzone's Music City. But he sat me down and he played me Scatolites for the first time, and Roland Alfonso, and Prince Buster, and the Wailers. His stepmom made him a tape from Roger Steffens' show that had Simmer Down on it and What's New Pussycat, and I copied that cassette because this is how we collected. It wasn't really so much about I got the original version, which is, I think that's a great thing to have an original copy of something, because you're holding something that someone held in their hands on their way home from a record store.
Yep.
New to the ears of the world.
It's an artifact.
Right? It's an artifact. But, you know, if I can only get it as a copy of my friend's cassette, I'm going to take it because the music is just so damn good, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. You're totally right about that. That's crazy. You mentioned when I was in junior high, just getting into music. My best friend Ben Malamet, his dad was playing in John Mayall's band, and like they took us to the show, and I got to meet John Mayall. It's a little aside right there. It was crazy. It was like we didn't know. Like anyway, yeah, that's cool to hear that because that was like a big influence on me. Like, whoa, this is like music is really cool. But can we talk about, because like what Roger and I were discussing before we brought you on, you know, letting people know who are listening, like what a big deal to us growing up, you know, because I'm 38, Roger's a couple years older than me, and you know, so the age we are, when we were in our teens, we were listening to Hepcat and we were listening to Jump with Joey and groups like that, you know. So and I'm sure many listeners really would love to hear about how you started. Not just listening to ska music, but how you really started playing it and forming groups here in LA and what that was like.
Yeah, thanks. You know, like I said, Jason Mail, one day he sat me down and he made me a tape. And one of the things on there was Black Uhuru with Michael Rose doing Artibella. And I didn't know for a long time, for years, that was a cover of Ken Booth and Stranger Cole. Okay, but he sat me down and made me some tapes, and his brother Gaz started making a series of tapes of old ska records that, you know, and sending them over from England, or Jason would come back from England from visiting his family with Gaz tapes, which became like these iconic cassettes. There became like a series of 100 of different types of these in different genres with tons of Jamaican music. But, you know, Jason sat me down one day and said, you need to go home and learn how to skank the guitar, Joey. He kind of instructed me, you know, like learn how to get in the pocket, because I'm a guitarist and a bassist, okay? So, and I've fluctuated back and forth between the two instruments my whole adult life, really. I mean, most of my public knows me as a bassist, but there was a time and a place where I was primarily playing the guitar on shows and on gigs and stuff. And, you know, also playing different genres like jazz and things like this, which I did not know was an influence on ska music. I didn't know what the influence of ska music was, but what I found out after the fact was the influence on ska music was what has already been influencing me for years. American rhythm and blues and jump swing from the late 40s, early 50s, jazz music, Latin music. All of that stuff was like the same, the things that kind of gave birth to ska music. You know, calypso music. I loved calypso music. Of course, everyone knew Harry Belafonte's Calypso record when I was a kid, even though it was from the 50s. It was that kind of record that's a perennial that you find at thrift shops, or all your friends' parents seem to have it in their collection, you know. I came to play ska music in 1989. Well, I started Jump with Joey.
It's crazy. And
it was kind of the necessity is the mother of invention situation, because I had been appointed to be musical director of a club called the King on 6th and La Brea in Los Angeles. And it was a roots music club, lots of like blues, rockabilly, American roots music, and things like this, okay? At a time when there wasn't really a spot in LA that was you could go and see this kind of music, because most of LA had been overtaken by big discos and, you know, funk revival and, you know, DJ culture at that point. And so my friend Mario started this club. He wanted to kind of bring it all back home. It was a small club. It only held about 120 people. And he put me in charge of, you know, booking bands into it, because I knew all the the revival type of bands from like rockabilly scene and things like this, and just people that played cool old music. And I was in charge of having to fill every night of the week, and I put together some musicians to be residency every Monday night. This club ran for 5 years, by the way, and the band was called the Red Devils, and they ended up getting a deal with American Records, being produced by Rick Rubin, recording with Mick Jagger. I mean, things really happened from that club, and I had booked the weekends with different bands, and what happened was there was a Tuesday I needed to do something with it. I loved Latin music. I loved Cachao. I loved Cuban music. And I wanted to learn how to play that. So I assembled some musicians that I knew from the Latin and jazz scene and started a little night where I could play, and it took off. And that's how I learned how to play that style of music, by having that every week. And Wednesday night was the only open night that I had the duty of figuring out. And, one friend, I started DJing there, bringing my rig and having my friends hang out and just play eclectic music and records, and Jamaican, Cuban, soul, just cool records. And one night I dropped like a blue beat style record. I think it was something like Hey Bartender by Laurel Aitken. And this buddy of mine who didn't know Jamaican music, he heard that. He's like, that's what you should be doing here on Wednesday nights. You need to make a band that sounds like this kind of stuff. So I started a band that...
Yeah, talk about one impactful statement by somebody.
No, I know. And to bring that full circle, I got to back up Laurel Aitken in Japan years later.
That's crazy.
3 years later. I know. It's like really crazy, because I always say, like, what happened to me along the course of my record collecting and playing music and being inspired to learn the genres that were turning me on, the certain characters from those records ended up popping out of the vinyl and being into my life, and being not just someone I play with, but oftentimes ended up being a good friend of mine. I'm like, what the hell's going on here? Like a predestined story before I ever visited the planet here or something. And it keeps evolving. And so I started Jump with Joey as a band that played old jump blues and swing music, jump swing, rhythm and blues, to things like Louis Prima and Wynonie Harris and Bull Moose Jackson, and some things like a few blue beat style things, and the Watermelon Man, the Baba Brooks version of Watermelon Man, and I think we played Bridgeview, and I made a ska version of Art to Bella, thinking like, I'm going to make a ska instrumental version of that Black Uhuru song. I still didn't even know. Crazy. Yeah, that was like a ska tune originally. But anyways, we were looking back, not knowing then, what I Jumped with Joey was really a tribute band to the Jamaican sound men and the records they played on their hi-fi systems before they were producing records. Because we were playing like covers or writing songs that were like those style of jump swing, and which gave birth to also what happened in LA like 5 years later with the swing revival movement, Royal Crown Review. One night when Royal Crown was just starting, they were friends of ours, and they hadn't been playing like backyard parties and things, and we loaned them our instruments during our break at the King, and they played at the King. That was their first public appearance. And so that, as the swing thing started going, we started tapering down, ramping down from the jump swing and things, and getting more and more ska in what we did. And so that's really the story. And I used to make my own flyers. And back then we had this stuff called Letraset, okay? It was like a clear an opaque piece of plastic that had rub-off alphabet letters that you would have to spell out one at a time. You would rub it off like if you had to put the words on your flyer by yourself. Okay, there was no Photoshop. You would have to go like, oh, J. Now move it over here. Oh, and like be really careful that you could get it all in a straight line with a very light pencil. You know, it was like Flintstones. That was our technology. Okay, right. And so the story of how I named the band Jump with Joey is that I needed a name. I had started this band. I had 10 songs ready to go that I had written out as arrangements because I had been studying how to write music for a horn section. And I had prepared these 10 songs and we were ready to play. We rehearsed, we were ready to play a gig. And I still had to make a flyer and I still had no name for the band. And I had run out of letraset, okay? I didn't have, I only had certain letters left on that thing, okay? And so I pulled out this record. I should have grabbed it. It's in the other room and I could probably find it, but it's called Jump with Joey by a guy named Joe E. Lewis. It's a Calypso record. Have you ever seen it?
No. Wow.
Yeah. Well, in our break, if we have a break, I could go grab it.
Cool.
To see it. But anyways, I decided I'll go down to the copy mat because we didn't have scanners. Go down to the copy mat and Xerox off that front little banner, top header of the album that says Jump with Joey and shrink it down to be on the size of a flyer. Back then flyers, were just starting to be hand sized too. They used to be 8.5 by 11. Anyways, I'll just call the band Jump with Joey. Okay. And you got to understand, like when I was a teenager, people called me Joey. But when I was an adult, people called me Joe. Mm-hmm. I was Joe. Or I was Tupelo Joe because I was in Tupelo Chain Sex. That was a nickname. Right. But once I started the band, I'll just call it Jump with Joey and I'll have the flyer ready. Now everyone called me Joey again.
I know you as Joey. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, I call you Joseph, but
right. Saint Joseph.
Saint Joseph.
It's such a trip to. I mean, because. To hear the creation of the band, I didn't know that, and I thought I knew everything about Jump with Joey. But yes, and we keep saying it back then. There's not many bands that were playing authentic, true ska. Like
there weren't any.
None.
You can't count the Untouchables because they were
not at all. That was a two-tone.
Yeah, they were, and there were a couple other ska groups around L.A. in the 80s. In that time, they were like two-tone style bands,
right?
But there were none. And there were no bands that had ska bands that were using an upright bass like ska. Right.
What year are you talking about where you guys really started, like Jump with Joey started really like ramping up the ska? What years are those?
90, I think. Yeah, 90. We started getting more. Well, here's the key thing that happened. We started in 89, and I think in 90, about a year later, this promoter at the time, I can't remember his name right now, but he was from Long Beach. He approached me and said he wanted to bring Roland Alfonso to LA. His name was Gerald. I don't know what his last name was.
Wow.
He wanted to bring Roland Alfonso to LA and he wanted him to play with us. So we booked the King and the country club in Reseda. With Donkey Show, I think, and a couple of the I can't remember.
Hilliard.
Yeah, it's a big gig that everybody remembers. But anyways, our saxophone player, Bill Ungerman, who was with us for a long time and later joined Royal Crown Review, he prepared all these Roland Alfonso charts for us, like El Pussycat and things like that, Guns of Navarone, like the classics. And so we were all prepared, and Roland Alfonso showed up, and we're like that night before the gig, and we started running down the tunes for this like sound check, and he was just blown away because we could play all the tunes without he didn't need to school us at all. There was no like haggling back and forth about the way a song's supposed to go, which happened commonplace within the Scatolites. If you would, I've seen them rehearse before. Even as many years as they had played those songs, they would still have this kind of infighting or haggling or battle of the egos about, no, man, this is supposed to go like this, and like, no, man, this. You know what I mean? Like,
that sounds like a band.
There was none of it. He was just like, oh man, I can just relax and I can play my horn, and they got my back so big time. He was overjoyed. Yeah. So and I think that was the same night that Angelo Moore came and played sax with us.
There's footage. There's footage of that, right?
Yeah, there's footage of that. Yeah,
on YouTube. That's some of the earliest. I mean, is it on the Scott Parade video? Am I even tripping out?
That's a different gig. I think that's a different gig.
Yeah, but footage. It's like black and white footage. I remember seeing it rolling there.
Very darkly lit because the lighting in camera technology was horrible back then, and I was using a camera that was already from the 80s. It wasn't even like a handy cam. It was like $800, okay? Right. But I had found like in the Penny Saver, which is, okay, your printed version of Craigslist, like found someone's a camera with a VCR. It's a VCR, video cassette recorder, kids, for those of you under the age of 40 out there. And you know, it had the VHS size cassette, and it split in half, and the part that you hook up to your TV to record TV shows would come off of that. You would just have the mechanism for the cassette part, the tape, with a battery, a rechargeable NiCad battery that was like giant, and it weighed a ton. And you plugged the camera into that. Okay, that's how we rolled. I mean, you did not have this kind of stuff. If we had this back then, imagine the amounts of footage we would have had with all these people.
Yeah.
Oh my God!
Imagine how advanced technology got even within your lifetime. That's a whole other show. Trust me. Where's it going to be in 20 years?
They have it.
That's a whole other. You know, it's so. At this point, you guys are definitely fans of Roland Alfonso. He comes in, he loves you guys, because by then there's literally no one playing ska the way you guys are playing it. It's all two-tone influence at that point. Like, what was that? How long did he stay? How many shows did you guys have? Was it like a quick weekend?
It was just a quick thing. Yeah, I think he just stayed a few days and left. Mm-hmm. And he had a handler. He, you know, we hung out. We saw him at the gigs and stuff, but we didn't have like lots of hang time other than that. You know,
right?
That was the beginning of my friendship with him. And so, you know, I would, you know, see him in New York a lot. I saw Scatolites play there. Hung out with him. I got him to actually record on our second Jump with Joey album a couple solos on a couple tunes, which was when I literally had to take a reel of 2-inch analog tape under my arm in the airport through security on the airplane, and you know, you got like either like a half an hour worth of music on that, or 15 minutes depending upon the speed that you were recording it at. You didn't have a hard drive full of however many tracks you wanted, however many songs on Pro Tools you want. It was a different ball game. So, you know, I went to Brooklyn and I got that, and you know,
that was on the Strictly for You Volume 2 album, right? Is that
no? This was one called Generations United.
United.
The second album had Rico Rodriguez on. I took the same reel of tape over to England and got Rico on there, and Johnny T from Linton Kwesi Johnson's group, and Jenny from the Bell Stars was on that, and so was Will Gaz was on it, and
Lonnie Jordan
from War.
Right, yeah. When I saw Lonnie Jordan, I was like, is it the same Lonnie Jordan? And sure enough, yeah. From
Lonnie Jordan from War, man. He played.
It's funny because going back to when we're young and seeing Jump with Joey, and it's like this work with Roland Alfonso. Another thing that sticks out is your work with Wranglin. When I saw this album, and it's called Kingston Cocktail, right?
Yeah.
And it's Orange album. And I was like, first of all, I was a fan of you, so I knew if I bought it, because I mean, you didn't. There was no internet even then. I couldn't go and get an idea of what it sounded like. I might have got it at Music Plus or something. I don't know. It was whatever, mid '90s or something like that. And Ernest Ranglin. I'm like, wait a minute, this is a trip. The whole album is Ernie Ranglin and Jump with Joey. This is a great collaboration. Like, how did that happen? How did you meet Ernie? And
a lot of this is in the power of suggestion. And once again, it comes back to Jason Mayall is the keystone in so much of this story, because Jason Mayall he'd moved back to England in about 84 or 85. And he would come to LA once or twice a year. He had these friends in Japan that were concert promoters, and they also produced TV specials and things. And so he would get hired by them to come to LA and make videos on like current nightlife in LA, and going to different clubs and doing vignettes and interviews with people and stuff. And he actually just became to where he was a full-time employee of these guys, and they had a company called the Smash Corporation, and eventually created Fuji Rock, 24 years ago, which is like the Coachella of Asia, if you will. And so Jason, my roommate at the time and drummer of Jump with Joey, is Willie McNeil, or was my roommate in 1990. And Jason was responsible for bringing Willie into the band Tupelo Chain Sex as the drummer when we were like 20 years old. We're longtime friends. Willie said to me, Jason's coming into town, and he's on his way over to Japan. And he said he'll be here in a couple weeks. He said, if you guys could put together an album by the time he gets here, he could take that over to Japan and see about getting us a deal over there. And so, which then happened, Jump with Joey happened, 3 albums that were licensed one at a time and recorded, licensed into Japan, with tours that followed. And so we went on our first one, and I think it was our second or our third time. On our second tour, I was like, man, I sure would love to be able to work with Ernest Ranglin. And so on our third tour, Jason Mayall said, hey, I found Ernest Ranglin, and I'm going to get him to come over with Roland Alfonso as the special guests in Jump with Joey for a tour with the band Jazz Jamaica that was taking Tan Thornton
on trumpet,
on trumpet, and Rico on trombone, and Courtney Pine on sax was their special guests. And so it was like the power of suggestion of like, God, it'd be really cool to do something with Ernest Ranglin, and so that was the beginning of my friendship with Ernest Ranglin. And we went on to do gigs together in the future. Well, I called him up to do the Kingston Cocktail record in 19...
Quick story, and I told you this story many times, and I'll keep it brief. I knew I was underage. I couldn't get in the club. But Devin, and Albert, my friend Albert, me, Albert, went, and it was at the Conga Room, and it was Ernest Ranglin and Joey's band, Joey Altruda with Ranglin. And we just went. We knew we couldn't get in. We went to see if we can get in, like have one of those stories, because we were underage, right? We were like, oh, maybe we can sneak in or whatever. We didn't get in.
It was super strict, yeah.
It was super strict, but what I do remember is going, what do you do when you're a kid? We're like going in the back, thinking we can sneak in backstage. And Willie had, we saw Willie, and we knew he was a drummer, and we're like, oh, this and that. Where's Ernest at? And then, where's Joey? And he goes, see that van right there? Joey's taking a nap. He goes, you guys need to go and skedaddle from here. And I get it now as a musician. You're like, all right, I'm going to take a little pre-show nap or something.
Yeah.
And we didn't get in, and our moms picked us up later. It was that kind of thing. We were young kids, but that was amazing. I wish I would have been able to witness that. Ernest Ranglin with Jump with Joey.
Oh my God. We had a lot of stories like that, because he came out there within a week. We played the LA Chamber Ballet did a whole choreographed ballet to the Kingston Cocktail stuff, and he played those shows with me. And Plas Johnson, who's the saxophone player most famous as being the guy who played on the Pink Panther recording with Henry Mancini's orchestra, but also part of the Wrecking Crew. I mean, his legacy is immense. But we did that gig. Also, when Ranglin was here, he came back in 90. Oh, no, wait, that was 99. Those gigs were in 99.
Yeah, those were 99.
Right? That was the same time he came to do the ballet. But another friend of mine who's like worked as a production assistant for a TV show was doing a rap party, and I got hired to do like a jazz trio. And I brought Ernest was staying at my house, and also I hired him, got him another gig on top of it, playing background music. There's Ernest Ranglin playing background music for a bunch of people that aren't even paying attention.
Right.
You know?
That's insane.
Except like one or two people, like the guy who actually knew who he was, who hired me. It was like, oh my God, this is so great.
That's crazy.
But, it was.
Those moments, right? Those are like the moments in life where you're just like, this is so bizarre. Like I'm playing with Ernest Ranglin. Nobody here cares. Like, this is such a big deal. Nobody cares.
Legend.
I know, we're just functioning as wallpaper music. And like, this is the type of stuff that Ernest has also been used to doing as a utility musician, is like, oh, I'm going to go be a star in Japan or somewhere, or Jimmy Cliff tour or whatever. And now I'm going to go down to the hotel here, and I'm going to play, some jazz trio stuff for people that are mainly talking over it, That's just the way the life of a journeyman musician like that, Such a humble guy. And he told me that he had once been in charge of Federal Recording Studios. Did you know this?
I didn't know he was in charge of it. No, I knew.
Yeah, he ran, he was the man in charge. He was also the main producer at Studio One Records in its early days. Coxsone Dodd's name went on the records as the producer, but Ernest Ranglin was in charge of the band performing well and producing the content.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and so then it was later taken over by Roland Alfonso, and then later overseen by Jackie Mittoo. But This is all such rich history,
And kind of the MD as well, right? You'd had like the guy,
the musical director and the real musical producer of the tracks, and Coxsone was the ears, like, that's the tune, things like that,
Yeah, we've had lots of Jamaican artists on the show who have spoken to this reality that, like, the producers. I mean, and some of them have been kind of bitter, like they'll be like, that was the producer, but like they really just, they were out in their car, like just smoking a cigarette while we were inside, like producing the track.
It's kind of just, it's going along the lines of what you're talking about. Like, okay, Coxsone's a producer, but when it comes down to it, I mean, you have a musician leadership that's going on there, whether it's Tommy McCook, Jackie Mittoo, like you said. And that's interesting too, because if you really dissect even the Scottalites' discography and their history, you'll notice even with the same players that certain eras are evident. You can hear maybe certain priorities in the instrument, or certain song choices or song types, depending on, if you wanted to look at it deep, is Jackie Mittoo leading the session? Is Ernest Ranglin leading the session? Is Tommy McCook leading the session? So that's even nerd. Like, I'm sure that's crazy right there. It's no surprise to me when these old school legends, like, they gravitate towards you, you gravitate towards them. I definitely want to talk about the most recent thing that you had going on with another legend, but this time in Brazilian music, Mr. Tom Zé. Can you please talk to our audience and tell us about this new thing?
Yeah, I would love to. I mean, this was another milestone in my musical journey, and just a huge honor to work with Tom Zé, and to give just a brief moment of like context here. Tom Zé, for anyone who's never heard of him, he's 84 years old. He's from Bahia, but has lived in Sao Paulo, Brazil since the 60s, and he's an icon of Brazilian music, and not in so much in the sense of how we know it to being like bossa nova and samba. He was part of the Tropicalia movement. He is steeped in the bossa nova and samba, but he's makes music that is uniquely his. You can't really put a label on it. It would be kind of likened to something like Frank Zappa or Captain Beefheart. That's just such a thumbprint and such a quirky and imaginative music, and no record is like the one that came before the one that comes after, and he's highly revered by the people that also created Tropicalia that are a little bit younger than him, like Caetano Veloso and Gal Costa and Gilberto Gil, to be three most recognized people of that genre. And Tom Zé was part of this kind of, let's say, defiant and deviant movement of music in the late 60s, very early 70s. That was a complete, like, a defiant gesture musically and lyrically to the actual repression and torture that the government of Brazil was having on people during the military dictatorship there. That had lasted 21 years, that dictatorship. So. Wow. And the people that were making this music were really kind of targeted by the government, So Tom Zé, because of that, like Caetano and Gil they were arrested and were exiled to England because of this, because they were being targeted as troublemakers, and Tom Zé went underground. And Tom Zé stopped making records by the late 70s. He made one record in 84, but for the most part stopped until David Byrne of Talking Heads visited Brazil and happened to find one of his records from the 70s and brought it home thinking it was going to be like a samba thing, because samba is part of the title of this record. And he got it home and he was like, oh my God, this is just Godhead, insanely good music. This guy's a genius. I gotta find Tom Zé. And he found him. And he basically then did compilations of Tom Zé's old records for his Luwakabot label. And he started producing new songs and new records by Tom Zé that, got Tom Zé on tours, basically showed him to the rest of the world. Tom Zé had a renaissance in his career because of this, at a time of like the lowest point of his, people didn't even remember him in Brazil at that point, really. And documentaries made about him. So I came to know Tom Zé through a band named Novos Baianos, who's another really important and beautiful, great, like Brazilian samba and rock band, iconic band. They've been around for 50 plus years now. They're friends of mine in Brazil, and they were mentored. They were actually brought together by Tom Zé. The two main people that started Novos Baianos were introduced to each other by Tom Zé. And so I made an article about Novos Baianos for Wax Poetics magazine. And because no one here in the States really knows Novos Baianos, and they need to know about this band. People need to go listen to this music and check out what this is. And so, long story longer, sorry, I just basically found Tom Zé because I interviewed some of Novos Baianos for the Wax Poetics article, and got to, ask Tom Zé some pointed questions through email about his, involvement with the band's early days and, things like that. And so we maintained contact and kind of like a pen pal friendship. And so I approached him to see, like, how about would you be open to collaborating? There's a song of yours that I would love to make a cover of in ska music version. And he said, well, yeah, let me, show me what is ska music. So I sent him another email with brief description of what ska music was for Jamaica with the independence and such, and how it influenced reggae, and sent him a few Scatolites and Wailing Wailers YouTube videos so he could have an idea. And he was like, great, let's do it. So
he had no idea about ska. He
didn't know ska.
Wow.
Not know ska. And so I basically got on the phone with Roger and Oliver Charles, from Ocean 11 and, Ben Harper Band, I said, hey, I got this going on. Are you guys in? If you're not, if you want to say no, fine, but like, let me know because I'm doing this thing. And so basically Tom Zay recorded his voice for me in a guitar part in his house and sent it to me. And then I sent it to Roger and I sent it to Oliver and I put the bass and the guitar parts on. And we got a trombone player from Georgie Ben's band named Marlon, who's quite well known in Rio de Janeiro, and some other people to sing in the chorus. And we put this record out. I mean, we put it out digitally so far. And we also did a Steppers dub version of it. And to see like, well, one market's probably going to want this if it's like a Steppers, and another market's going to want this because it's a ska. And then there's going to be a crossover market that are fans of mine and they know Tom Zay and are fans, and they're going to go like, oh, bingo, like I just got two people that I really like together on one thing, you know? So we did this, and our secret weapon was also Victor Rice. He did the mixing, and it's phenomenal, man. I mean,
great job, yeah.
So we put this out a month ago. Oh, we put it out on April 7th, so it's a month right now.
Yeah.
So as we're speaking here, and it's got legs. I mean, in its first 3 weeks, it got 35,000 plays on Spotify, which is really impressive for like an indie. You know, it's very independent. You know,
Yeah.
Right. We're not the most famous artists in the world. You know, and it's in a genre that's not. You know, it's not Britney Spears. Let's put it that way. So
that's super impressive. Do you have any plans to release it on vinyl or anything like that?
I do. In fact, what we're doing is we're planning to make a 7-inch with a really nice cover and colored vinyl, a limited edition of this that will be available as a pre-sold or pre-ordered item. And so what I've done is I've created a wait list for this. When I get 1,000 people that say, yeah, I want it, then I will press it and they'll be notified through email, and they'll get the goods, and it'll be something that will be manufactured, and it will be most likely, go up in price in the future as something that, people will want because they missed out on it when it was originally for sale. And if you go to joeyaltrudabiz.com/Tom, you can register there. It's an opt-in page, and if you scroll through it, you'll see like it tells the story behind the collaboration and gives you context and the personnel and everything. So that's what I'm doing. I'm working towards getting that 1,000 people right now because I really want a copy of this for myself.
Right.
And it's better to do it this way. It's better to pre-sell vinyl and not have to deal with than having it all sitting in your home and sending it to distributors and things like this.
That's really smart. That's a smart move. Joey Altruda Biz, B-I-Z?
Yeah.
Joey Altruda.
.com/Tom.
Nice. Well, people go get on that waiting list. Has the waiting list been doing well so far?
So far, so good. But you know what? The thermometer still needs to go away. Thermometer's still rising here.
Well, it's cool. Hopefully our fans of this show, we're so eclectic as far as having artists that are in reggae music from the jump from the 60s all the way to modern artists. And you are like a legend, a modern legend. It's really hard. How do I classify Joey Altruda? It's really weird. But
work in progress. But,
our audience for sure will eat something like this up. Yeah.
Well, please join the wait list because, I went to, I made a record in 1990 with Jump with Joey called El Diablo Ska with a picture sleeve. And I think it was at an all-time low. People were only buying CDs. I was trying to sell these at shows for, I think, $3 a piece back then. And, most people said, man, I don't have a record player anymore. I sold all my records. I only have CDs. Okay. It was the hardest thing to sell. And you know what? I made 1,000 of those. And once in a while, I'll see one on eBay starting at $75 because people wanted it, and it was a limited edition. So yeah, I mean, it's an honor to work with Tom Zay, and I got my sights set on doing another one with him. You know, we're talking about it now. So like, I passed the first test. Like he said, yeah, I'd like to do something. So now it's about choosing the song and getting it done and negotiating. But you know, I'm super stoked. And if you go to my website, joeyaltruda.com, you'll see blogs that tell my whole story about how I became involved with Brazilian music and how I found Novos Baianos in Brazil and how we became friends and their whole story and how it led me to Tom Zay and what his story is, the whole thing, and talks about João Gilberto for all of those of you who know, like the girl from Ipanema and like that kind of Brazilian bossa nova. João Gilberto was directly involved with Tom Zay and Novos Baianos. So it all kind of, there's an ecosystem there that's so interactive. It's fascinating historically.
Wow.
That's awesome. It's really cool just to hear that like you're continuing to get to work with your heroes, you know? So that's like, congratulations on the new record. And I know our listeners will go get on your waiting list. One thing I wanted to ask you, like taking it back a little bit, just really out of my own curiosity, because like I've mentioned a couple of times, when I think of LA ska and the pioneers of you know, people in LA and really, you know, people in the US playing Jamaican style ska, I think of Jump with Joey and I think of Hepcat. And you know, it'd be cool to hear from you, just like for fans of the music. You know, it seems like, because you're saying 89 was around when Jump with Joey started doing that, and Hepcat kind of started at around a similar time, and like you guys must have been aware of each other, right? And were you?
Oh yeah. You know, Hepcat, they were 19 years old, and I think I gave them a show at, I don't know where I found them. They might have approached me, but I gave them a show at the King. But I think before that, I had made the El Diablo ska record. And I think I had met Greg Lee and Destin. I'm fairly certain I had already met them before, but they came up to me at King one night. I guess somehow they were like able to finagle their way in there, even though they were still like 19 years old. They said, you know, we want to record a 45 and wondered if you'd produce it for us and put it out on your label. Okay. And that was Nigel and Club Meditation. Wow. Was it Club Meditation or Club Medication? I can't remember.
I think Meditation, but
yeah.
That early 45. That's a trip. I didn't know you had anything to do with that one. That's awesome.
So they had started recording the thing, and it was in process. And they brought me in on the second session for the production of those two songs, and I helped them kind of clean house and get the sound of the thing tightened up, and you know, the solos that oversaw, like the solos they were adding, and kind of guide them into like really making it a solid performance and getting the mix sounding good. And, you know, then we pressed the record. And
what did you think when you first like heard these kids come up to you that were 19 years old? Because now this is, you know, you're the first guy in LA to be doing like ska, and now this is the first time, you know, some kids are coming up and being like, we want to do this. Like, were you stoked on it? Were you like, all right?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. I wasn't blown away. It wasn't like, oh my God, I got to see the Scatolites, you know, like,
of course, yeah.
Time when you got to see Scatolites and it had most of all the original people in it, you know, right. But like, who was? But I mean, they were like, yeah, these guys are cool, but you know, they still had not yet gone to that place where they were that 3-part harmony and rock steady. I mean, frequently after King, they would come to Jump with Joey gigs at King, and I lived 5 minutes away from King, and I would have like Greg and Alex and Destin come over to my house afterwards, and I would play them stuff, and I would play them like, I would make tapes after hours. I had things that I was like, had brought home from England, because like Fire in the Wire and what was the Ethiopians Trained to Skaville and these types of things, you know.
it was kind of a mentor situation too, because you said they're 19, they're young.
Yeah,
in comparison.
And I was 25, but I mean, I didn't look at it like a mentor thing.
Right.
Like, we both loved the thing. Like, oh man, God, let me tape these for you. You get, and like they were hearing this for the first time.
Right.
Yeah.
That's more what I meant with my question about, like, were you stoked on it? It's like, not that they were so amazing yet, but just like, all right, like there's some young kids like interested in this music that I've started to love,
Oh, definitely.
And were they like, were they like right from the start, was their ambition to do like Jamaican style ska, or did you kind of like steer them like?
No, they were doing it and they were good. And I remember too, like some years afterwards hearing Greg Narvis playing Buru beats like Lloyd Nibbs on the drums, and I mean he had that thing down. I mean Willie could do some of it, but Willie didn't have it down. Like Greg Narvis knew it like the way Lloyd Nibbs really knew it, like Count Ossie style Buru beats, man. They did their homework. They just kept developing and doing their homework, which is always so exciting to see some at the development of the band, and seeing the band went on to get numerous albums and tour nationally and tour internationally. And really, I can say now, I look back and say that band is still together after over 30 years, whether they played all the time or only do reunions. There's still a unit that comes together. They're an institution.
Yep.
That's incredible. That's just incredible. There were a lot of really cool bands coming up right around that time that were taking an interest in playing traditional ska, that were kind of in their teens, and they were really trying to make it happen without really seeing that, the ska music, as much as it's very rustic and has certain flaws in the performances and things, mainly in the Coxsone records, more than Duke Reed was a perfectionist. But if you look at it, they were still brought together with people playing band music that was largely written out. It wasn't like a garage band where we're trying to figure it out by ear and emulate something. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
So a lot of the bands in the early days of like the ska revival, they were okay. Some were fun. All of them were fun.
Right.
And some were pretty good, but a lot of them that kept going actually got refined and found better players to be in the band, or the players in the band learned how to play their instruments better and come together in a more unity. So it wasn't such a raw punk thing, because ska here came from punk rock, because punk rock gave birth to two-tone. And so that was, and it's a DIY thing. Ska became a DIY thing like punk is. If you look at it, it wasn't approached like the Scatolites in that era of musicians were doing it. Those people were band musicians from, hotel orchestras and cruise ships and things, right?
Right.
Exactly.
It's an interesting lineage,
Looking at that era, and obviously being really young, but seeing it from a distance as much as you can without the internet, you would know you have your Hepcats and your Donkey Shows and your Let's Go Bowlings and your Jump with Joeys. But Jump with Joey was, for me, in its own category, and I'm not just here to blow smoke. It was like more reminiscent and reflective of like the Scatolites, when you had horn players that had a mature sound, horn players that could take these solos that were at a certain level. You had an upright bass. You had the double bass incorporated. Like, I don't care how, it's not going to sound the same. You had Willie with the beat, and you could tell he listened to Jamaican music. So for me, whenever I was a youngster listening, I was like, oh yeah, but Jumbo Joey is like the closest thing that we have to the Scatolites, and no diss to Hepcat. They found, I'm a huge fan, obviously, we all are, but other bands like Let's Go Bowling, Donkey Show, I'm missing a bunch of other ones at the time.
Stuff like that.
Ska was a little later.
Let's Go Bowling was also on that gig with Roland Alfonso and Jump with Joey. Donkey Show, Let's Go Bowling, and us at the country club. Who are you saying, Devin? It was later.
Who did I just say, Roger?
Oh, you said yes, Scott. And I said
that's
for
right.
me,
Yeah.
kind of they were like, because when it hit right in 99 or 98, like.
Well, they were around a little. They were around before then.
Oh, no kidding. Okay.
I thought they were.
I'm selling
Yeah.
them short.
Yeah,
Sorry.
they were. But here's what
I
happened.
said.
With Jump with Joey, we played a variety of styles of music. Even when we were a full-blown Jump with Joey ska group, we would still have a song that would be kind of like 60s blue note, influenced by jazz messengers, kind of walking bass, that kind of a song that had a little more sophisticated chord changes on, and or certain Latin tunes, things like this. And it was hard to find a guitar player that could cover all of the things, okay? Because most guitar players who played ska were still DIY players and couldn't play those other sophisticated things, or vice versa, okay? Like the guy that could play great jazz, but he can't play ska, he doesn't know Jamaican music. So, after we had gone through 3 guitar players, we decided, and couldn't find anyone. I said, let's just replace the guitar with a percussionist for now. And that's when we started putting in way more Afro-Cuban influence to our sound. It just happened. And then, it was an influence on Ska, what they were doing.
Right.
They were coming up,
See, that's funny. Because I for some reason I thought they were a later band, because I know David.
And they were probably mid-90s. I don't know exactly.
Is that you, Devin? From your?
I think it's on Joey's end.
Oh,
There's like some kind of
bad. Okay, good. Oh, it's a dog. Okay, cool.
Oh, it's a dog.
I was wondering. It's a dog. I was like, cool.
It's creating like a crazy like. The dog is like dubbing out the interview.
It's cool.
He was scratching.
So usually Devin has the busy street, and I was like, Devin. No,
and the dog. My dog already. My dog already showed up in this episode a couple times.
It's dinner time.
That's right. He's like, come on. Well, look, we'll let you feed the dog because we're coming up against it. But before we let you go, we have a little portion of the show we like to do with all our guests. It's called the Rapid Fire, and so we're just gonna fire off some questions for you. You don't have to overthink them. Just some quick answers.
It's gonna be yes or no kind of thing, or quick answer kind of things.
Is this like a ball show with the dad jokes?
It's kind of like it. It's kind of like it.
Almost
very close.
I'm going to know it's Friday's episode, by the way. Well, it'll be several Fridays ago by the time this show airs. But
oh, you're going to be on it?
Yeah.
Is that the one you did, Roger?
Oh, the Dennis Ball show? Oh, dude, do it. It's so much fun.
Oh, no, I did it. I taped it already.
Man. He's cool. As a matter of fact, I wish I could do it again and redo it different, because I think I was a little too reserved. Because it's a fun show. He wants
I watched your episode, Roger. It was good, but I do think he maybe caught you by surprise. I think by the end you were like, okay, like I see what this is.
Now I got it. Now I was like, if you want the non-serious Roger, I'll bring you that. Yeah. I'll show you my Dennis Ball.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, bro? Yeah. Okay, so this rapid fire question, I'm gonna go first. Some of them are funny, some of them are
This isn't as good as Dennis Ball. I'm just gonna go out there and say that. Ball.
Joey Altruda, what is your favorite cereal?
Captain Crunch. Life. I like Life too.
Ooh,
okay,
that's good.
Captain Crunch. Captain Crunch cuts my hand, my mouth.
I praise you for saying Captain Crunch. A lot of people will be like, "Oh, I don't know," and Raisin Bran. Good job. I like Captain Crunch too.
Guilty pleasure, but I never ate either of those. Just like I could.
Yeah.
Those consequences.
Yeah. No. What was the first album you remember buying?
As a brand new album, Cosmo's Factory by Creedence Clearwater Revival, 1971 or 7. Yeah, I was 8 years old. It was when a brand new album cost $2.99, and I saw this record cover. I'd never heard of Creedence Clearwater Revival, and I saw this cover, and I was like, "Wow, hippies with beards! This has got to be great!" And I came home, and it was great.
Nice. What year was that?
71.
Wow. Nice.
I was 8.
Okay, what was the last thing you listened to before today's show? Like, what was the last thing?
Last thing I listened to, I was listening to a live recording sent to me by Clark Gayton. I don't know whether you know who he is. He's a trombone player who had been with Scatolites in the 90s. He's from New York. He also plays sousaphone, and he's an incredible trombone player who's been in Sting's band. He's currently still on and off the road with Bruce Springsteen's band, but he's an eclectic musician steeped in jazz. And he sent me a live recording of really cool instrumental reggae stuff of like a 5-piece band of him playing sousaphone. There's no bass on it in the band. It's him and the tuba as the bass part, and it's really good. And I think it might be what's the sax player's name? From Scatolites. The African guy. He's
sax player. Trying to think. Cedric Brooks? No.
Cedric. Yeah, I think Cedric's actually in that band. Yep.
Oh, nice. Crazy.
Who? Okay, and this is a hard one, but we're going to need an answer from you. No, there are many. Who is your favorite Jamaican singer?
That's okay. Quick, rapid fire, huh? I mean,
yeah.
You just got to go. First thing that comes to your brain. Say it again.
Alton Ellis. I mean,
beautiful.
That's a good
it's
one.
a hard question because
you don't have to explain
it. Like, who's my favorite bass player? Well, there's 20 of them that all have great personalities.
Yeah.
They couldn't really compare to the next guy. But Alton Ellis comes to mind,
Perfect. It's an unfair question, but we ask it anyway.
Yeah, and that's a good answer.
What
is your favorite item on the hospitality rider backstage?
Oh, hospitality rider backstage. Well, that's a. Probably red vines.
I like that.
I don't know. Psychological.
That's thus far.
And they're multi-purpose because you could use them as straws and stuff. It's great.
Yeah. If you break a string, maybe.
There you go. Yeah, they're thick. They're fat. It's good for rhythm guitar and Jamaican music. Yeah. What is your favorite place in the world to perform?
So far, it's been Japan. I haven't gone to Europe yet, so I have no idea what Europe's like.
That's surprising. I would have thought you would have played in Europe by now.
No. Jump with Joey has not been a very portable band. We actually never really had that level where we went on the road. Part of it is because it's hard to haul around one of these upright basses and shift them.
For sure, yeah.
I would like to imagine. Here's a unique question. As far as Brazilian guitarists go, if you have to pick one, just the guitar, João Gilberto or Baden Powell?
Well, that's really an unfair question. I mean, I think Baden Powell taught João Gilberto, actually.
Yeah.
No. Wait. No. Luis Bonfa taught João Gilberto.
Okay.
I think I listened to João Gilberto more frequently than I listened to Baden Powell.
Yeah.
João Gilberto would probably pick Baden Powell as his favorite guitar player.
Right. Got you. There you go. It is unfair. Dev?
Okay. All right. I think I got the last one here.
Extremely good. Masters. I mean, João Gilberto's guitar playing is underplayed. His voice steals the show from it. But to hear him play the guitar, I mean, there's unique mastery going on in there.
Right.
Okay, we talked about original pressings and vinyl earlier, but what is your most prized 7-inch record?
Well, I have, off the top of my head, I have a 45 by Laurel Aitken on the R&B label. It's an original pressing that I found in Jamaica for about, I don't know, very cheap. The guy didn't know what it was. It's in very good condition. It's a record called Little Sheila, and with a song called Boogie in My Bones on the other side. It's number 002. It's the first song that Chris Blackwell ever produced, and that was his label. And I found it, and one night I was DJing at a restaurant where he happened to be one of the investors in, and he would go in there all the time. And my friend who was the owner said, "Do you see that guy there? That's Chris Blackwell." And so I had the record, and so I put it on to see whether he'd flinch, like could I get a reaction out of him? And the owner came back to me and said, "Chris Blackwell wants you to come and sit with him at the table." And it was a very cool restaurant where you smoke weed in the restaurant and not get caught. There was no city ordinance, there were no cops patrolling. It was a very European, people smoked in there, and we were passing the pipe under the table and talking, and he autographed the record for me. And then I went on tour with Jump with Joey sometime after that to Japan, and Laurel Aitken sang with us. So I got Laurel Aitken to sign the other side of the record. So that I could say that's probably it's an artifact. I mean,
yeah, it's an artifact. It's a museum piece.
And you said it's 002?
Yeah, because he didn't produce 001. It was something he licensed from a Jamaican producer. But this was the first song he actually produced, and it was the first hit of Jamaica. Little Sheila, he told me, and I didn't know. I was playing the other side. He said, "Well, Little Sheila was the hit. This was the first hit of Jamaica in 1962." I'm like, whoa. So I found gold there. You know?
That's amazing.
Jeez,
wow, man.
Well, there's our rapid fire segment, man. And you murdered it. You killed it.
Yes. Well, we got to have you back on because, there's so much to talk about. If you're down to come back on sometime, we'll do this again.
Please. Yeah, anytime.
In the meantime, everybody, please go get on Joey's waiting list for his record, joeyaltrudabiz.com/Tom.
Thank you.
Oh, that was good. I can't believe I remembered that. All right, go pick that up. And also, just go, if you maybe have never heard Jump with Joey or Joey Altruda's music, now you are in for a treat. Go do your homework, go splurge. There's so much out there. And now, it's all at our fingertips. It's beautiful.
And you can go to Jump with Joey Altruda on YouTube and find my channel where I interview Roger extensively, and I interview Victor Rice, and there's a lot of cool things on there. And there's a Mixcloud for Joey Altruda. There's, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. There's even a TikTok channel.
Wow.
Oh, TikTok.
I don't even have a TikTok.
Me neither. I like it.
No, I'm an early adopter for people over the age of 17, right?
Yes. All right. Well, people, you've heard all these places you can go get Joey stuff. Thanks, Joey, so much for coming on with us, man.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you guys. It's a great pleasure. And thanks for doing what you're doing here. This is great work, and I love what you're doing.
Thanks, man.
On the flip side, baby. Ciao for now.
Ciao for now. All right, Joey Altruda, thank you so much. Yes, that was Joey Altruda, everybody. Man, just...
I've known Joey for a bit, and I still get nervous, man. I'm like, that's Joey Altruda. Crazy.
It's just, it's like these little things. You and I were talking about this on the phone yesterday about how you just you know what? I never even gave Joey the banner. I'm going to do it now.
Oh, yeah.
There it is.
Joey Altruda.
Well, there's the banner.
For those of you that are listening and not watching, Devin.
Yeah, well, you know what? I do these things for my own enjoyment. Right. But just, it's like just do it over. The little perks of being a musician, it's like you get to, you might not everyone makes a lot of, you don't always make a lot of money, but you do get to hang out with the people that were once just legendary to you. You know what I mean? And Joey is just one of those guys where it's like, man, Joey Altruda.
You don't always make a lot of money, but you sure are poor.
You sure, yeah.
But you sure
That's pretty much it.
But you sure can't afford.
You don't make a lot of money, but you sure got a lot of poor friends.
A lot of poor friends. No, definitely. Yes, getting to talk to him is a definite form of payment. Too bad I can't pay my car payment. No, I'm joking. So.
All right. Well, look, everybody, thanks for listening. Please go tell your friends about this show. Subscribe on your podcast platforms. That helps us become it helps us move up the chain of when you go search for a reggae Cast in your podcast app. If you just type in reggae, we're moving up. We're already moving up, so thanks to everybody who's been doing that. But that's a great way to support the show, is to go make sure you're subscribed. Get a friend who you think might be interested in this stuff to subscribe. And especially this episode, if maybe you've got some friends that are really into other kinds of music and not like super into Jamaican music, you can be like, oh, this guy Joey came on and we talked about, Brazilian music, and we talked about Afro-Cuban stuff and all kinds of, because Joey, that's so cool, man, the way he just knows he knows so much. And I'm going to start sending him my record of the week from now on before I even put it on here, because then I'll be like, all right, I sent this to Joey, here's what's up with this record.
He is, yes, I can't, we know what we know, but Joey knows what we know times pi. Like
Joey knows what we don't know.
And not just Jamaican music, but dude, we didn't even get into his Brazilian music is a whole other thing. And I like Brazilian music, so I kind of dip in to some of the stuff that he listens to as well. But he's an expert on all subgenres and genres, and in being that, he's able to cut to the chase of how they are all related, so he can do things like this, have Tom Zay, a Brazilian legend, sing on top of a ska tune. That's no one else could do that. Joey's
exactly
that. Everyone out there, go follow us on Instagram. My Instagram is @reggae_Raj. And then Devin is @manlikedevin. No spaces, is true. No dashes, no underscores.
No doubt.
No doubt. Keep up with us. We're always releasing new content. And you'll know about the show there. And you'll see some highlights. We post highlights on past shows. So go follow us now.
Right now.
No.
All right, Raj.
All right, Devin.
This has been the Reggae PodClash. Special thanks to Joey Altruda. Special thanks to you, Roger.
Thank you, Devin.